Alright folks, welcome back. This is part 2 of the setup guide whatever thing series. I'm gonna be explaining about how to set up your car, how each tab of that setup screen works, and part 2 is gonna be focusing on differential. So let's go into the pits and see how this works. So I've been sweating out Spain for almost half a day yesterday because lifeless, it's holidays over here. So differential, how does it work, what does it do, and we have a little bit of a demonstration here once again. So let's start with the theoretical part of it, how it actually works and what it does before we go on track and test things out. Sometimes what you feel in theory doesn't really translate into what happens in the game because of how the game works. The physics is not exactly like in real life, but we have to just put up with it anyway. On throttle takes effect when you are putting down the power, you're accelerating, so it affects how much the rear of the car will move around. When you have lower on throttle, for example, as you go 50, as low as you could get in the game, that means the inside tire, let's say you're going into turn 3 of Spain, it's a long right-hander, so as you're going through the right-hander, how much of the inside tire is going to rotate relative to the outside tire. All right, so the inside tire is going to be allowed to rotate at a different speed so that it rotates slower in a way, 50%, right? So I don't know exactly how it's calculated, but it just go with this flow. The more open the differential is, so as you go lower on the values here, lower means more open. If it's more open, it will allow the inside tire of the corner that you're going, right, the inside tire to rotate at a different speed compared to the outside tire. So what it's going to do is it's going to allow the car to turn more as you're applying power. So this is great if you want the car to be more responsive. That means the rear to be moving around a bit more, not oversteering kind of thing, but allow the rear of the car to generate the rotation rather than the front of the car to generate the front end grip through suspension or aerodynamics. So this is also an important part of the car setups in F1 22. If you have less on throttle, it's going to allow the rear to turn a bit more. In high speed tracks like Spain, for example, it is quite beneficial to run as low as it could get, maybe 50-51%. That's what I would prefer actually to run the entire track, just so the car turns a bit more in high speed corners. When you run very high values, say just for argument's sake, let's say someone say, oh, let's run high differential, it's much better, less understeer, blah blah blah, whatever, doesn't matter the argument whether it's good or not. When you go higher on throttle, it's not necessarily a bad thing. What it's going to do is it's going to allow the inside tire to rotate at if it's 100%, let's just put it 100% first. If it's at 100%, it will force the inside tire as you're going through turn 3, for example. Again, as you're going through turn 3, it will force the inside tire to rotate at the same speed as the outside tire. What it's gonna happen is it's gonna create a forward momentum because both tires are forced to rotate at the same speed. You're gonna create forward momentum, which is in other way traction. This is useful for slow speed corners but not high speed corners that much, unless you are intentionally trying to create understeer through a very oversteery setup. So we will demonstrate this very shortly, how having higher on throttle will affect your car's rotation in high speed versus having it at very low amounts at 50-51%. And then we'll go to off throttle. So let's have a quick demonstration here. Let's just go to 50%, which was what I was running. Normally you'll be running 55 or 60, which is the recommended amount to be running for any track in any car, whether it's a time trial car, Grand Prix, career mode, realistic, or equal performance. Everything doesn't matter. 55, it's like a sweet spot for this entire game in and through all the tracks. 60 is also a good in between. Normally you want to be using higher differential coming out of slower speed corners like traction zones, like turn 1, maybe the last corner in Spain before the back straight, right, out of the chicane. you want to be using slightly higher so that you get a bit more traction out of the hairpin out of the chicane. And everywhere else you might want to be using 55. You can adjust this by one click on your MFD and it will go down to 55. You can use 55 throughout the high speed corners, so it will give you a lot more turn in as well, less understeer in high speed. So let's give it a go at 50 for example, and then we'll just compare it to 100 just for seeing the obvious differences, because sometimes for me 55 to 60 I don't really feel that much difference unless in a race condition with heavy fuel. Now heading into turn 1, 2 and 3. Turn 3 is where we're gonna be looking for the difference, whether it's gonna matter or not. It was okay, not bad. Even here as well, it's controllable. And let's go back to the start of this part here, maybe just around here. Yeah, all right. Skill issues. That's what happens if you have your differential too low. It can somewhat cause the rear to turn too much. Like I said, it allows the rear to move a bit more. You know, the rear of your car is going to be moving a bit more, but if it moves too much and you get a pendulum effect like that, like this, you get a pendulum effect like this, turns, and it just goes away because there is too much grip on the outside, not enough on the inside, and it's just going to spin the car around one way or another. It might be too much grip on the inside, not enough on the outside. You can also lose grip depending on you know, how the car loses itself. Let's try it again. Maybe I'm just running a bad line over here. Yeah, it's a bad line. So let's restart this and see how it works into turn 3 once again. And again, you might not see the difference immediately because I'm just waffling about on how to run 50% and blah blah blah, invalidated laps and whatnot. But as soon as we put on, let's say 100% differential or 80, through turn 3 you'll see that the car just does not want to turn in as we like it. So this is somewhat of a normal run you'll be running in the race. It's okay. And car feels responsive, you know, it does not want to snap on you if you just run the normal racing line, which is letting it run wide on turn 3 around here. Now the reason again why I'm demonstrating in Spain is because a lot of people don't like Spain and I like Spain, so maybe you can learn a thing or two about Spain from here. Again, it's not a track guide, it's just how to use the setup to your advantage, right? So you can see, you know, in a qualifying you want to be even tighter, keep it as tight as you want, and let it guide you. In real life they don't do this because the tire scrubbing loses you time. In real life they use more of this realistic line, let it run wide. Less tire scrubbing means more time gained in a way. Alright, so you can see the car is just let it play naturally. You can see the car is just on full throttle, goes where I point it. Okay, now let's go back to the pits and quickly make an adjustment here to the... Oh wait, I didn't have to go out on track actually. Didn't have to go back to the pits. You can adjust the differential from your MFD, remember that. So good old me, still forgetting good things here. Now on the pit straight here, as we have plenty of time before turn 1, you can adjust it, let's say to 100 here. Let's see how this is going to affect us, you know, on throttle here. I'm applying the same amount of steering, if you can notice it. Let's go back to turn 1 and try a few different lines, perhaps the same line or different line, to see if this is actually a difference or it's just the setup playing its part. Try to be tighter on the entry, but again it's running wide and wider as we go. So let's repeat that real quickly. If we can adjust our on throttle here, let's go lower. Ooh, yep. Yeah, as you can see, that's a bit of the problem of running very low differential. If you go a little trigger happy with your throttle, the car wants to move around a lot. And if you're not precise with your inputs, that can happen. So let's go again. It's a bit more lively, like I said. And the rear wants to step out again. We didn't have that problem with 100% on throttle. You know, the car doesn't want to wiggle around earlier on, but later on it might wiggle a bit more. 100% off on throttle, what it's going to cause you is it's not going to give you that little wiggly moment that we had when we tried to force the car to turn a bit more. But because of the forward momentum that it keeps generating from, you know, a lock differential, you're going to have understeer at the very end of your high speed corners. Now, why is this important to know? If you have too much differential applied in your car, it creates understeer. You might get a misunderstanding that your car is understeery because it does not have enough front downforce maybe, and you may make, you know, front wing adjustment here and there, make the suspension softer and whatnot to give it more front end grip, but you find things not working out for you. So again, return to what works in the game, which is somewhere around 55 to 60 is the sweet spot for differential in the game. Let's try this again, 60, and see if we get any problems through turn 3. All right, do we get that snappiness that we encountered at the entry of turn 3? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe a bit of skill issue again. Let's see if it works. Again, remember, on throttle differential can be changed at any time in the pits or on the track through your MFD, alright? See, I didn't get that little wiggliness in the middle there. Let me show you where I meant the wiggliness, alright? So here, as I'm trying to turn in with 50% differential, what happens is when I try to force the car to turn a bit more, right? This is what is happening, all right? Let's say at 50%, it's allowed, the car may be allowed to turn this much, okay? But when I try to force it, it may not be able to take the load. The only way to counter that is by adding some downforce to the car or making the suspension settings a bit different so that the car can handle this extra input that I'm giving it, right? Or simply just use a bit higher differential, 55 or 60, and then the car doesn't, you know, when I force the car into the corner, it does not snap. So it keeps going forward. At the same time, it doesn't turn too much. But what that's going to cause is it's going to cause the car to have a little bit of understeer as you go to turn 3. This, in qualifying, you might lose about half a tenth by taking this line. Honestly, you know, if you're more bothered about getting through the lap rather than getting the lap time out of the car, this is the way to go. Most of the time, you know, it's all about making a safe lap rather than going all balls out in the first lap. So first lap attempt, this might be good. Second lap, third lap on your qualifying, it's always worth trying different things out to find that extra half a tenth or tenth that you need. So in summary, lower lower on throttle is the way to go in the game. Now, I'm not an expert in setting up cars, you know, I'm not an engineer in any sorts of thing, mechanical or whatever it is, but a little bit that we know is, you know, you use lower differential in the game, it is beneficial. Lower will help you to move the rear on power, it will move a bit more, allowing you to, you know, turn the car in high speed and low speed as well. So you might even be fine-tuning the setup, maybe you're happy with every part of the setup, you want to find just that little bit, that maybe 1% more to like the handling of the car to suit your liking. So you may experiment with like 56, 57 and all that stuff, and I ended up with 51 yesterday before, you know, settling for 50 for the entire track, except for a few corners, like the middle sector I'm using 55 towards the end of the middle sector. That's because I want the car to be a little bit more understeery, as you know, it can oversteer there on power very easily. Turn 1, 2, 3, I want it to be quite open, so it can turn a bit more as I want. Or into sector 3, and especially on the exit of the chicane, I want it at 55 so that I don't get wheel spin. If you have your differential too low, it also induces a lot of wheel spin rather than giving you traction. You might think that, oh, let's just put it at 50 on throttle, it will give you better traction since it's more smooth. But no, it's not going to be that way. If you go too low and you need to put down power, you will be losing acceleration power. You'll be also generating more wheel spin out of it. So safe side, like I said, the reason you want to be using 55, it just works everywhere. That's about it. Now off throttle, this is getting again a bit more technical. This is the theoretical part of it. What off throttle does is, when you're going on the brakes, when you hit the brakes, you're not, basically whenever you're not hitting the acceleration, all right, you're not hitting the throttle, not hitting the thing, you are going on the brakes, or you're just coasting. So what's going to happen is, if you have your differential very low, it's going to allow the car, again, like I said, allow the rear of the car to move a bit more, not the front, the rear, because F1 cars are rear driven cars, so the power is delivered to the rear of the car. So when you go on the brakes and you let the car coast, either one or both, let it brake and or coast, what's going to happen is it's going to allow the rear to move a bit more under braking. So heavy braking zones, say like Monza Turn 1, having low off throttle will allow the car to, turn a bit more in slow speed, so gaining you that entry speed. You can carry more speed into the entry and carry more speed on the exit. If you have your off throttle very high, what it's going to do is, let's just take this as the reference value, how much the car turns at 50% off throttle. Now if you put it at 70, maybe the car is going to only allow you to turn this much with the same steering input and same braking input. So you have to probably be steering harder, you have to be braking harder and more precisely to get the car turned in at higher off throttle. So you're going to be having less movement, which is more stable in a race condition and qualifying condition, but it's going to be a lot of understeer created there on entry and even on exit. So what's a sweet spot for running off throttle in this game? 50% is your answer. In qualifying, I like to run 50% all the way. In the race condition, if it's a track where rear tire wear is more concerning, for example Baku, where rear tire wear is just exponentially more than the fronts, you want to look after the rear tires, and having a little bit higher off throttle will make sure that, let's say this is 50 and you go to 51, it just maybe this much, 52 is a bit this much, just estimating it. You're limiting the amount of slide that is created on the rear when you have higher off throttle. Okay, that's the theory part. That's also how it actually works somewhat in the game, and it looks after your tires a bit more. So if you're just following cars in a train and you just want to save tires, this can also help. Or if you're pushing really hard but tire wear is going to eventually catch up to you, this is a way to make sure when the tire wear starts getting serious and starts affecting your car's handling, having higher off throttle will make sure you are more stable. So in summary, what do you want to run for on throttle in the game? 55 works on every track, on every condition. Slow speed, medium speed, high speed, rain, dry, it all works. Off throttle, 50 works everywhere. Like I said, this is the one thing that you want to be doing. To fine tune it though, this is where you'll have to practice in your race trim and in your qualifying trim and see what really works. Sometime in qualifying, you want to be using 51, and in the race you want to be using 50 depending on the track. Maybe let's go to somewhere where you have more front tire like Japan. I will prefer to use 51 in qualifying because I set the car up to be more oversteery, because it's a front limited track, and I want the car to be more stable on the rear in corner entries, on corner exits. It's also high speed, but in the race I want to run 50 because I'm not pushing 100%. We are following cars, or we're not carrying as much speed as we do in the qualifying trim. So again, it's going to come down to personal preference, but what's going to work? 55-50 or 60-50, 60-51, 55-51. These are all the sweet spot, the good range to work it out. And you can fine tune it here and there. Don't go any higher than 52 or 53 on the off throttle unless it's somewhere like Baku, Canada maybe, where you have a lot of red tire wear. These are the only places that it actually helps from my experience. Right, that's about it for the off throttle. Now let's just give you a quick demonstration of the extreme ends of 50 and 100 off throttle, how it works out in turn 1. And let's see. And again, for measurement purposes, let's keep it the same for the setup. I'm going to put it down to 50 brake bias again, and let's go on track and see how it differs between 50 and 100. Let's try a full lap and see how it works. And by no means it's gonna be the perfect lap that I did yesterday, but it's gonna be a close lap just for comparison and see how the car handles. Okay, onto the straight, not much difference, maybe just a better exit, blah blah blah. Into turn 1, I can confidently put down the power because I know the car is not gonna slide on me there on the exit just now. But again, I'm losing a few thousandths here and there because I'm not really focusing on the lap. Yeah, okay, here is the first time I noticed the difference between 50 and 100 off throttle. The car is not turning in mid corner. So that is, like I said, the difference in the off throttle. And when you have it at 50, it allows the car to rotate even more, and it's will allow the car to continue rotating as you apply power. So they correlate, on throttle and off throttle, but without getting too technical about it, if you want your car to be a bit more lively in the mid corner and on the corner entry, you want it to turn a bit more, yes, you want to be running low off throttle. 100 like this, it's not going to work. So let's just do 2 or 3 more runs before we end this and see how it works out. All right. Yeah, I broke a bit late there, I think. So, yeah, it's very understeering. It's not going the way I wanted. Now let's go to 50 off throttle again, and maybe let's go to 51 because it's somewhat stable, in high speed. Just 1% makes a lot of difference in a track like Spain. Right, and once again, if you need a setup for Spain, it's probably in one of the playlists that I have, and Spain should be in there. It's an old setup. I will keep it updated from time to time, and join my Discord as well if you want to get updated setup. Ooh, it is very pointy on entry. That's a lot of difference I noticed immediately, so that's very nice to see. Try it out as well. You will definitely notice the difference between 50 and 100 off throttle. So like the car immediately just turns into the corner because the rear is allowed to move as much as it wants, as freely as it wants. Whereas on 100 off throttle, it's like, nah, you're not gonna turn, sir. We're not gonna allow your rear to turn. But in return, you get a bit of stability. So best way to get both is run something like 51 off throttle or 52. You'll be happy in the end. And yeah, that is gonna be it. Once again, a long explanation, the usual I love to talk and whatnot. It's more of a demonstration here to explain things in a very dumb and simplified but over-explained way. So just mansplaining my way for F1 22. Have fun using this knowledge to your advantage, and hopefully you become a better driver. So we'll see you in the next one, which is going to be the suspension geometry. Very simple and straightforward. It should be shorter than this, I promise, I think. Bye bye.